So, hi everyone, my name's Joanne, and I'm here to talk today about the perimenopause and the experience that I have had recently, say over the past year. I'm 42, I work in a quite demanding and stressful job in the city of London, and I just want to talk through today, where I've been, where I am now, and, what treatment that, you may want to consider that can help you as much as it has helped me in the past 10 months or so. So my story starts around July 2018, roughly, I think, when I suddenly started to feel very unwell. And prior to this, I had never had any serious health issues whatsoever. I wasn't on any medication. I was always known for working, extremely hard, 12-hour days, 14-hour days. I once worked 22 days in a row without a break. I cared for both my ill parents, who have, since passed away. I studied for exams. I was doing a postgrad, on top of my day job. And, up until July last year, I felt absolutely fine. I had bags of energy and was always on the go. And then suddenly, as I said, around July 2018, I did start to feel seriously unwell. So looking back in hindsight, the first symptom was what I would only refer to as brain fog. And what I mean by that is I started to forget words in the middle of sentences, and it was quite embarrassing the first time it happened because I was in a very important meeting, and luckily my colleague, knew something was wrong because it was completely out of character for me. But she covered. But afterwards, I was starting to think, oh my goodness, I was typing emails, I maybe send 200 a day, and I was starting to, trip over words and things like that, and I did start to become concerned. The second symptom then really began with what I can only describe as serious night sweats, and that was quite concerning for me because, as I mentioned, my parents had passed away, and they both had two types of cancer that came on very quickly when they were seemingly healthy, and night sweats were a symptom of that. So I was very, very concerned about that too. Then I suddenly became unable to sleep, and I mean literally unable to sleep. I think I went a week without sleeping at all. And as I've never been on any medication, I was quite reluctant to go and see my GP. And in hindsight, I imagine that, didn't help. It exacerbated the situation somewhat. And then the hot flushes began during the day, so they are separate from the night sweats. You would be in a meeting, you could be on the tube, or just walking around the house, and this sudden sweat would start from my head and just move straight down. So I think that's when it started to click with me that I possibly was having menopausal symptoms. And I watched an episode of Sons of Anarchy where an older lady who was a character in the series described the symptoms, and I was like, oh, that sounds like me. Because one thing she did say, which completely resonated, was that she was completely emotional all the time. And, I was becoming tearful as well, which was highly unlike me. So it was having an impact, in my home life with my husband. I was in meetings or audio conferences and, would come out afterwards and, be quite upset, which usually, just any criticism just bounced straight off. But on this occasion, I was becoming more and more upset about things, which, was a waste of time, frankly. But aches and pains all over as well, which was a concern. And it all came to a head around September 2017 when I had to telephone my boss and say, look, I won't be able to come in today because I literally can't get out of bed. And I then obviously decided enough was enough and went to see my GP on the NHS, who unfortunately, wasn't able to help. They did a lot of tests, but none of them related to my hormones. And I knew, that was probably what it was. So I went back to see them again. They did more tests, but again, there was no focus on the hormones. And it was all about, oh, do you think you're depressed? Which I knew I wasn't, because, I have family members who have suffered from depression, and I knew that, this had come on so suddenly. And, I felt quite happy some of the time. So, the antidepressants were offered, and, I was keen not to take them because, again, I'm very against medication. So I went to see another doctor privately in, another part of London, and he conducted some tests but seemed to think I was borderline. And again, was reluctant to refer me, for any further treatment for menopausal, perimenopausal symptoms. So luckily by chance I came across another clinic and I booked an appointment, and I can honestly say it was one of the best things I ever did, because the lady who I saw, completely listened to me. We went through, all my symptoms, the hot flushes, the night sweats, the brain fog especially, and the aches and pains, and went, through quite a comprehensive process. So at that time, for someone who was so against medication, I would have tried anything at this point. So I agreed to go on a course of tailored HRT, hormone replacement therapy, which was, sort of tailored to my specific needs, such as, I'm a smoker, etc., etc. But as I felt the fact that I was listened to and being taken seriously, because you have to remember I had 9 appointments prior to this, including an ultrasound, a scan, an MRI to make sure, that it was nothing sinister to get to this point. So just to be taken seriously and eventually diagnosed as perimenopausal, I think was half the battle. So now that I'm on this treatment plan, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks, I started to feel much better. So the first thing to come back was sort of the sleep. The hot flushes went away, the night sweats have reduced, and the brain fog is much better. Now, don't get me wrong, I do still have some of these symptoms, but they're much reduced, and I feel like I can function like a normal human being again. Whereas, before I had this treatment, I literally lay on the sofa for 2 weeks, unable to, completely disengaged, not interested in doing anything, which is most unlike me. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you are feeling any of, these symptoms that I have described, I would urge you to seek help, because, the HRT that has been, designed since the 90s, when there was the media scandal about it, is much more safe, but it's also tightly controlled. And I think it's body identical hormones that I am on, which are the closest alternatives you can get to estrogen and progesterone. So the lady that, I, went to see was Dr. Theodora Calensi, and I honestly can't thank her enough for, I say she brought me back to life, but she's ensured that I stay married and stay employed. So thank you. I really feel back to my old self again.